I'm joined now by Stephen Olikara, Senior Fellow for Political Reform at the USC Schwarzenegger Institute, CEO of Bridge Entertainment Labs, and co-host of Group Chat on Two-Way. You've got a lot of jobs.
Yes,
Stephen,
yes,
welcome back to The Story Is. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me.
And good to have you here in Washington.
Yes.
We appreciate you coming in the building.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that polling when it comes to Iran. 61% disapproval at this point. We have never really seen anything this close into a war with disapproval that high.
That's right. I mean, we haven't seen it at least since the Vietnam War in 1971.
But it took some time to get to that point.
And 50,000 Americans dying to get to that point. And certainly the Iraq War was very unpopular, similar levels. So this is not good.
After years.
After years. And so this is not good for the Trump administration. And when you look at where we are right now, I think what the American people are seeing is that there's been no change of regime. You've had Americans killed. Ships are stuck in the Strait of Hormuz, and we're still paying over $1 billion a day. And so I think the American people who've been already tired of Middle Eastern wars getting out of hand, which, by the way, President Trump campaigned against these exact types of wars. You're seeing that now reflected in the polling.
So what does President Trump do about this then?
Well, he has to get a deal as quickly as he can. What he said today is he didn't like what he was seeing from the Iranians. And I think that underscores the deeper issue here, which was, in my opinion, very predictable, is that this is an asymmetric war in terms of the U.S. and Iran. And so Iran can just continue to not lose and continue to keep the U.S. in this fight. And so that's where I think he's running into issues with the deal. The other thing that's important today is that we've now hit 60 days of this war.
Right.
And 60 days matters because at this point, there is no question at all that is an unconstitutional illegal war. That's based on the War Powers Act in the 1970s, passed after Vietnam. Some people look at the Constitution and say he needed congressional approval right away. Regardless of those debates, now we're at 60 days and he needs congressional approval.
The War Powers Act says that the president can basically do almost anything he wants militarily for 60 days,
right,
but then needs approval of Congress. He has not asked for approval of Congress. There has not been a declaration of war so far. Meanwhile, in the streets today, we see May Day, and we see all of these people in the streets with different things that they're frustrated about, but sort of a reminder of just the general angst that we see, especially for about half the country. We've seen all the No Kings protests and now what's happening with May Day.
Yeah, that's right. And you see the energy behind it, not just about the frustration with the war, but there's an economic populist kind of message there. And this is what I call the immune system of democracy kicking in, when people feel cynical and they feel like they don't have agency. To see a lot of people out on the street peacefully protesting, that's a good thing. And I would say that regardless of party. And so not only do you see a lot of people on the street, but you see Democrats obviously having a significant advantage going into the midterms, which is why, and I know we'll talk about this in a little bit, I don't think Democrats need to be cheating in order to win the midterm elections.
And then so that of course is a transition to this topic of gerrymandering.
Yes.
And there's been this push. President Trump kind of started this with what happened in Texas, this push to make Texas more Republican. Then California responded to make California more Democratic. Now we've seen state after state sort of go through this to try to make their particular states more partisan. I know you're from the Schwarzenegger Institute. Arnold Schwarzenegger's whole thing is terminate gerrymandering. Right. The whole idea of getting rid of gerrymandering was something Arnold Schwarzenegger helped push for many years in many states. But it seems like it's hard to put the genie back in the bottle on this one, huh?
It definitely is. I mean, first, for context, I was part of the movement over the last 10 years to enact gerrymandering reforms, which successfully passed in a cross-partisan way.
So why is nobody listening to you now?
Well, they did at that time, and I think right now we live in a hyper-tribal, hyper-polarized environment. It's us versus them. Anything our side does is right. Anything the other side does is wrong. And in that type of environment, you can justify almost any type of political action, including, if you're the Democrats, reversing on an issue like gerrymandering. And here's what happens is people feel less represented.
Yeah.
Cynicism increases. And you have a dynamic today where roughly 10% of Americans are electing about 90% of Congress, and that's due to gerrymandering as well as closed primaries. And that's why Congress feels so unresponsive. That's why Congress has a 15% approval rating.
But how do you push back on that?
I think we need the kind of leadership that we probably haven't seen in a number of years that is calling Americans to a better kind of politics. There's always been two models of politics in American history. You can either appeal to humanity's worst impulses, or you can call out our better angels. And our best leaders have been able to do the latter. And that's when you're standing on moral grounds, saying this is the right thing to do. And unfortunately, because of the party tribalism we see, we're just seeing a race to the bottom. And I think what Americans are looking for are politicians who are looking out for them and not the parties.
Are they, though? I mean, because if you actually look at the statistics, I don't know if that's true.
And that's a
it
fair
seems
point.
like you're getting rewarded actually for looking out for the parties, and the people that are looking out for our moral best interests are not the people that are winning right now. I mean, who do you think in the 2028 crop actually fits the model of what you're saying in either party to do what you're talking about?
I think on the Democratic side, I look at leaders like James Tallarico and Ro Khanna, who are trying to reframe a set of debates as not left versus right, but the people in power, the billionaires who are dividing us against each other. That's fueling what I call the division industrial complex, this system that makes money on making people hate each other. So you see a few leaders, but obviously most leaders are going to follow the incentives and they're going to follow the money. And to your point, there's a lot of money in division. And also further to your point, a lot of these referendums to gerrymander the maps, blue states and red states, it's going to the people. And so my message to everyone at home, Democrats, Republicans, Independents, we have the power to say we should have a voice in choosing our elected representatives, not the other way around.
And yet every one of them has passed this year.
So far. And so that's what's happening right now. And we'll see where the reform movement that I'm part of goes after that. But I do think there will be a need and a movement for people who can actually serve the American public. And what I would also say is a country that is so cynical, and when approval ratings for all politicians and institutions are so low, I do think something positive can come out of that, but it takes real leadership.
Stephen Olikara, thank you for coming in. This is among the topics we will get into at the California governor's debate, which is going to be happening on Tuesday night on CNN. I'll be moderating alongside Caitlin Collins. That's Tuesday at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We'll carry it on CNN, CNN app, CNN International, CNN Espanol, basically whatever language you want. We've got an option for you. Stephen, thanks again.
Thank you.